The Old Testament reading is written in Genesis chapter 21 and beginning at verse 8. The child grew, and on the day that he was weaned, Abraham gave a great feast. One day, Ishmael, whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham, was playing with Sarah's son Isaac. Sarah saw them and said to Abraham, "Send this slave girl and her son away. The son of this woman must not get any of your wealth, which my son Isaac should inherit." This troubled Abraham very much, because Ishmael was also his son. But God said to Abraham, "Don't be worried about the boy and your slave Hagar. Do whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that you will have the descendants I have promised. I will also give many children to the son of the slave girl, so that they will become a nation. He too is your son." Early the next morning, Abraham gave Hagar some food and a leather bag full of water. He put the child on her back and sent her away. She left and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was all gone, she left the child under a bush and sat down about 100 metres away. She said to herself, "I can't bear to see my child die." While she was sitting there, she began to cry. God heard the boy crying, and from heaven the angel of God spoke to Hagar. "What are you troubled about, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying. Get up, go and pick him up and comfort him. I will make a great nation out of his descendants." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well. She went and filled the leather bag with water and gave some to the boy. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the wilderness of Paran and became a skillful hunter. His mother found an Egyptian wife for him. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And our second reading is written in Romans chapter 6, beginning at verse 1b. Should we continue to live in sin so that God's grace will increase? Certainly not. We have died to sin. How then can we go on living in it? For surely you know that when we were baptised into union with Christ Jesus, we were baptised into union with his death. By our baptism then, we were buried with him and shared his death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the death by the glorious power of the Father, so we also might live a new life. For since we have become one with him in dying as he did, in the same way we shall be one with him by being raised to life as he was. And we know that our old being has been put to death with Christ on his cross, in order that the power of the sinful self might be destroyed, so that we should no longer be the slaves to sin. For when a person dies, he is set free from the power of sin. Since we have died with Christ, we believe that we will also live with him. For we know that Christ has been raised from death and will never die again. Death will no longer rule over him. And so, because he died, sin has no power over him, and now he lives his life in fellowship with God. In the same way, you are to think of yourselves as dead, so far as sin is concerned, but living in fellowship with God through Christ Jesus. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.